So let's talk about President Trump and the very latest on the Mar-a-Lago raid. The fallout continues. It's getting worse. And I think if like Democrats thought that this was going to be the thing that would shut Trump up and that they wouldn't have him in 2024, boy, did they make a stupid mistake if that's what they thought, right?
Right. So the question now that we are debating is, did former President Trump commit espionage? And if so, what will become of the U.S. while he is tried and possibly convicted? Buckle up, because this is a bumpy one. But the most timely element of this story is that a few hours ago, the former president posted this on Truth Social. He said, wow, in the raid by the FBI of Mar-a-Lago, they stole my 3 passports. 1 expired, along with everything else. This is an assault on a political opponent at a level never seen before in our country. Third world. Now, this is a little bit strange because 1, passports were not listed on the receipt of documents that the government issued publicly. We are going to look over that list in a minute. 2, this talk of 3 passports is really throwing people. 1, he says, is expired. It's not unusual for him to have 2 others. 1 was most likely a diplomatic passport, and 1 was a personal. And also, being labeled a flight risk, if they took this on purpose because they thought he was a flight risk, well, that's a judicial decision. A judge would have to do that. And that is, we're not told of that in the search and seizure documents. So that also is interested. So given that he has not been charged with anything, it's likely he could just apply for a new one if maybe they were bundled up in stuff that was taken and they were taken accidentally, or he could ask for him back. So there's a lot of questions about this, because is the government calling him a flight risk, right? Would that be something like he does have the ability to take his own plane out somewhere where he wouldn't need a passport, right? So again, many questions here around this.
Yeah, and I guess now, like you can't call up Jeffrey Epstein to like take his plane. You know, he's out of the picture,
right?
So you know
why? Why do you know? How do you know where that plane is?
I don't know where that plane is, but I know a lawyer that knows Jeffrey Epstein that turned into a judge that maybe he has some answers on that. But there are some big questions about all of this, right? So number 1, are there different standards being applied to Trump than were applied to Hillary Clinton?
Right. This is separate from the passport issue, though. This is just like the passport issue, though, I think is worth discussing before we talk about the search, because again, was that taken intentionally? They were not supposed to take it unless a judge has decided he's a flight risk.
Well, we don't know. I mean, if they were in a box or something, again, this is all conjecture. We don't know. But if they specifically see someone's passports and they take them, but they're not listed on the document, clearly he could ask for them back.
Yes.
Right. This could be a motion to just ask for them back. Now, I've heard it argued that you wouldn't want to ask for anything back right now while you're being investigated, because that would, I don't know, send up a red warning. I mean, but it's like, here's my passport. I need my passport. What are you doing here?
Right.
Is anyone, by the way, like, if they took like normal people's passports, right? I could see how it would be an issue. But the former president of the United States, it's not like is he going through like customs check at the border? Like, does he have to wait in that line?
I think everybody has to go through customs. Everybody has to at least be greeted by customs agents.
But I mean, wouldn't he have like some sort of a diplomatic ability now? Like, you know, in the way that you'd have like a diplomatic immunity where you have the black badge and you have the courier pouches that don't get investigated by customs because you're a diplomat. I mean, doesn't he get that for life if you're a president of the United States?
No, I don't think so.
You would think so. I think.
And
I mean, I kind of want to see, like, you know, Trump just standing in the regular, like, not even the pre-check line, just like the regular, you know, TSA line. Like, you know, I don't think that happens. But I mean, I think something to point out about the passport too is the evidence starts and stops in that one, not tweet, but that one message he put out on Truth. There's no other evidence that they have the passports.
Yes.
Right. Because
because it's not listed.
That's putting all the faith in that. Yep.
Yes, which is why this is a strange story, right?
So then maybe he tweets later, or he sends out a Truth Social later, like, oops, my bad.
I found them.
They were in my bedside table. Don't worry about it. My 3 passports are back where I had them. Don't worry about it. You know, my Russian passport is back where I hid it.
Oh, we were just vacuuming and they got
They got misplaced.
They got misplaced. All right, so let's talk about the search warrant that the government used to help themselves to things inside of Trump, the former president's house. Now, it's interesting to look at this warrant because, again, you were bringing up these questions: is there a different standard being applied to President Trump than was applied to Hillary Clinton? Because we have now a case to look at around this same Espionage Act and this same Document Collection Act, right?
Right, because if you have emails on a server at your house in Chappaqua, right, your own private server, and they are not within the confines of the United States government, then you have classified materials on those servers, on your private servers, right? And that technically, if we look at 1917, if we look at the Espionage Act of 1917, was started a few weeks after we entered World War I. So it's old. It's been revised many, many times throughout the ages. But at the heart of it is that you're not allowed to gather, take secret government information that could harm the government that you got it from.
Right. This is meant to keep us safer, right?
Well, you think.
Because it allows for government secret information to be in a place that's only with people that are trusted so that enemies could not exploit it.
Right. Like if we gave out secrets from one of our submarines that we were working on and we gave it to the enemy, we gave it to the Germans during World War I, or we, gave them some sort of trench information during World War I, that could be used against us. That could harm our citizenry, right? That was the impetus for it in World War I.
Okay, so we want our law investigative bodies to prevent people with access to this information from mishandling it. We should collectively want this in order to keep us safe, right? So the question remains then, is all of this accomplishing that goal, right? Was that accomplished with Hillary Clinton? Will it be accomplished with this raid on Trump? So let's just at least keep this as a shared goal, right? So first to the warrant. It gave law enforcement the right to do this search at any time in daylight hours, so no middle of the night thing. So you see here it says only between 6 and 10 p.m. and before August 19th. Now, what is it they thought they would find? That's in Attachment A. So if we look at Attachment A, it says it has the locations to be searched include 45 office, all storage rooms, all other rooms or areas within the premises used or available to be used by the former president and his staff in which boxes or documents could be stored, including all structures or buildings on the estate. So this is where this Melania's closet business comes in, because obviously closet
in the basement
is a storage room, right? So, okay, that's why there was some outrage on that. Now, what is it they expected to find? Let's look at Attachment B. Any physical documents with classification markings, along with boxes, right? B, information, including communication in any form, any government and or presidential records created between, now January 20th, 2017 was his inauguration, and January 20th, 2021 when he left office, and any evidence of the knowing alteration, destruction, or concealment of any government and or presidential records or documents with classification markings, right? So then what did they take? Let's look at the list. There's 2 pages here.
I'll rattle them off here. All right,
okay, because passports is not one of them.
All right, let me get my spectacles on here so I can read through these here. I got my property spectacles on here. All right, number 1 is executive grant of clemency for Roger Stone. They wanted the clemency grant for Roger Stone. They have the info about the president of France, a leather-bound box of documents, my leather-bound books. Various classified documents, potential presidential record.
Okay, I just want to stop you because TC is top secret, SCI is secret compartmented information. So these are rankings of like super secret and then super duper secret, basically.
Then binder of photos, handwritten note, box labeled A1, box labeled A12, blah, 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 blah. Miscellaneous secret documents, miscellaneous top secret documents, miscellaneous top secret documents, miscellaneous confidential documents. That's just on the first page. Here's the second receipt that they handed him. Box labeled A, all these box numbers with A numbers, miscellaneous secret documents, confidential document, miscellaneous secret documents, confidential documents, secret, top secret, and top secret documents.
Okay, so boxes, and my guess is leather-bound documents
leather-bound books
would be where passport might have accidentally been, right?
Well, I like that it actually listed leather-bound box.
Right.
What is a leather-bound box? Is it like a treasure chest or?
Right.
Google it, Clayton.
That's his pirate.
See what comes up.
That's his pirate booty.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look that up. Oh, I guess it's like, it looks like a spell book, like a grimoire, what you wrap up in. That can't be
maybe
it.
It's his spell book.
So Trump had a copy of the Necronomicon, and the government wanted it, and that's what this was all about.
Yes. Exactly.
Although I keep my passports in a fireproof document bag. Those,
So that would be listed here as fireproof document bag, not leather-bound box.
Leather is not fireproof. So
again, a lot of top secret, confidential, secret documents, super duper secret documents, above top secret that were in his house. And after the list was released, Trump issued a statement saying they could have had it any time they wanted it, and that includes long ago. All they had to do was ask. But my question too about this is, back 3 months ago, when the National Archives individuals were there with his team and the lawyers in the basement going through these documents for hours and hours and hours, where Mr. Trump walked down and said hi, how are you guys doing, and introduced himself. What then? Like, they knew this stuff was here. This is not a mystery. Why is there this problem now? His lawyers said he declassified a lot of this information. Actually, and a lot of it actually related to Operation Crossfire Hurricane, which is, of course, the Russiagate investigation. And he's been asking the Department of Justice to release that information publicly. So he's had it in his house, and in a binder of documents. He released and declassified a lot of this before he left office, so we don't know.
Also, I just want to point out one minor detail on page 2. If you can go back to list 2, why the typo in the last line? Like, can't you correct that? You're not typing it out.
Do
you see the bottom,
yeah.
28A, miscellaneous taupe secret documents?
Like,
can we get this one right, please? Like, I think this is kind of an important document.
Almost there in our chat. Thank you for the super chat. Says Trump had a standing order that said any documents that he took off site would be declassified. And I think you said, and I missed it, went by, but he said Hillary did not have that capability unless Bill declassified them while he was president.
I think she actually did. We're going to get to that in a second. It's not just, sort of like a kingmaker, like I declassified these and then I'm taking them, right? There's protocol to that. It seems strange that he's saying they could have had it. All they had to do is ask. And then he would be working with these investigators, them saying, we want all of this. And him saying, got it, I'll give you half and then keep the rest in my private residence. Like, you would think of a better hiding place if you were intentionally going to hide these things than your own ass house. Like, that to me is also strange.
Conan Billybone in our chat says, you guys give so much damn rope to that con man. Hey, we're reporting the story here. And what I will say, what's unequivocal is what Michael Tracy tweeted just today. And he said that in 2017, the FBI opened a ludicrous counterintelligence investigation into Trump. By then, the sitting president, based on that idea that his foreign policy views could constitute a, quote, national security threat. It was based on his tweets. Literally, the investigation started because of his tweets. That was the point of no return in obliterating their credibility, says Michael Tracy. He goes on to say, in 2017, counterintelligence investigation launched by now CNN employee Andrew McCabe was expressly predicated on ideological and political grounds. But now we're just supposed to assume FBI brass gave up on that radically fallacious investigatory angle. And he points to a 2019 tweet that he made back in, this is January 12th of 2019, where he talks about Lisa Page, acknowledges that the impetus for the Russia asset investigation was opened after Trump fired Comey. It was ideological in nature, based on tired Cold War 2.0 tropes and the need to defend America's moral authority. So basically confirms the FBI was acting politically, he says, and Lisa Page confirms that. And then Andrew McCabe, of course, who started all of this, is now at CNN. That should tell you a lot. So we're not giving anybody any rope. We're covering how the politics of today and using these political offices as weapons. You're weaponizing certain departments. We saw it under Obama. We saw it happen at the Cincinnati IRS office, weaponizing the IRS to go after political opponents. So that is without a doubt.
That is an overarching narrative of what it feels like is, Trump getting hit from all angles. And I validate how that feels. But every investigation has people on it that have to just look at what is in front of them and open the books and say, what is it that's here? Is there something actionable? I think that
but it starts politically, though.
Sure,
right?
But
that's the point.
Let's sort of go through what is actually here, right? And whether or not there is a standard for this, because what's mentioned on this search warrant is U.S. Code 793, right? Which is the code for gathering, transmitting, or losing defense information. In 2016, Hillary Clinton was being investigated for the same thing. So we have a precedence of powerful people being investigated for this same thing. And we have to ask, are there two different standards for different parties? Or is there one standard for privileged people and a different for non-privileged people? I think that is
I think both things can be true, right? There's absolutely the case that if you've got money and you've got power, that, we saw the favor. How in the world was a guy like Jeffrey Epstein, who was already arrested, right? And he was already,
yeah.
And then he was able to go and still curry favor with the likes of Bill Gates and President Clinton, and still, how does a guy like that, who was brought up on, was already being looked at very, very closely for what he was doing, then get involved again and still get all sorts of doors open for him? If that happened to you or me, doors would be slammed in our faces.
Right, but again, we're working this conversation out of the shared goal that we want national secrets only in the hands of benevolent people, right? That this will keep us safe, right? So is it going to keep us safe to investigate these powerful people, Hillary Clinton and Trump? Is the standard the same, right? And will it then be applied to everybody, no matter if you're rich or powerful, right? And so these are the questions that I don't think we are getting answers to, because in July of 2016, James Comey, head of the FBI at the time, referred to the investigation of Hillary Clinton. He referred it to the Justice Department, and he recommended no criminal charges be brought, right? Mm-hmm. He said, here's his memo from that date. He said the department had looked into whether or not there is information that classified information was improperly stored or transmitted on her personal system in violation of a federal statute, making it a felony to mishandle classified information either intentionally or in a grossly negligent way, or in a second statute, making it a misdemeanor to knowingly remove classified information from appropriate systems or storage facility. Now, he goes on to detail exactly how she did that, using several different private servers and administrators of those servers during her 4 years at the State Department, and used numerous mobile devices to view and send emails on that personal domain. Okay, a lot of us use our personal email for business, right? But we don't all handle top secret or classified documents. Comey goes on to conclude that there is evidence to support that any reasonable person in Secretary Clinton's position or in the position of those government employees with whom she was corresponding about these matters should have known that an unclassified system was no place for these conversations. In addition, the highly sensitive information, we found information that was properly classified as secret by the U.S. Intelligence Committee at the time.
Oh, interesting.
And was discussed on that email. So then why does he recommend no further prosecution, right? Because he gives this explanation that he found no criminal intent. He says, in looking back at our investigations into mishandling or removing that classified information, we cannot find a case that would support bringing criminal charges on these facts. All cases prosecuted involve some combination of clearly intentional or willful mishandling of classified information. This is where people got stuck, right? This willful mishandling, or vast quantities of material exposed in such a way as to support an interference of intentional misconduct, or indications of disloyalty to the United States, or efforts to obstruct justice. And we do not see these things. He goes on to say, because we don't think she was hacked, then nobody is not safe from it. Then it's okay. We looked, we saw that she was on unsecure servers, but we're pretty sure she wasn't hacked. And so no one was harmed. So no harm, no foul, right? So
but if you look at if this is a violation of the Espionage, if that's what we're talking about,
no, we're not talking about the Espionage Act right now, even though that is in the search warrant. We're talking about the gathering and transmission or losing of information, right? So
right. But what I'm saying is, if that's where this is headed, which is a violation of the Espionage Act, then it's a matter of having it's not a matter of, well, it didn't get in the hands of nefarious people, right? It's there. We have it. We have it off-site. It's not in government hands. And they took this the gathering of it is the problem, right? And it was
that she basically was using it as personal information often. Like, it's the same. Like, she basically had it in her house, her digital house, right? And he had this information physically in his house. Of course, there are holes in both cases. Clinton's emails jumped from server to server. Many were never recovered. Some they had to go to the person who was on the chain to see the original one. Trump says he was participating in his investigation for documents and then presumably held some back, right? The New York Times reports, though, that his legal team signed a statement saying that they gave them everything. So, there are questions there. So maybe Trump would deserve prosecution and maybe Clinton would not, or maybe both of them were protected because they were powerful. Which one would be worse, right? And so this newsletter this weekend I read from David French at the Dispatch, and I just really wanted to leave him with the last word because this is the thing that's really upsetting me and turning my stomach. He says, if Trump went beyond Clinton in his efforts to conceal and cover up his misdeeds, including defying a subpoena and falsely asserting he turned over all of the classified information in his possession, then he may face criminal consequences for obstruction, even if his initial conduct wasn't materially different from Clinton's. The bottom line is deeply disheartening. Two of the most powerful and prominent politicians in the United States engaged in conduct that virtually any other American would be prosecuted for. They have placed the system under great strain, and the system is buckling. It remains to be seen whether Donald Trump's conduct was so much worse than Hillary Clinton's than prosecution is. If so, then it's both legal and just. Indeed, the entire issue may be so fraught with peril that the DOJ may decide to merely seize the documents without any further proceedings, which is what I think. That's my prediction, but let's just put that aside. But if Trump did break the law and is not prosecuted, we can look back at this pivotal moment in history and know why. July 5th, 2016, the Comey memo, because the FBI set an extraordinary standard for prosecuting powerful people for mishandling our nation's most precious secrets. And we should not change that standard now just because there's a collective dislike of Donald Trump. So this is the super uncomfortable question that we have to collectively come to terms with, not just because we like or don't like Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. That is the wrong way to look at this, right? The right way is it fair and does it make us safer? And this is the thing that is so upsetting, is because if we see two different standards or we see a different standard for privilege, it's an indication of a broken system and an incredibly unfair one and sad.
But I think it's already here. I mean, we see it. I mean, look at the way that, all of these people are handled. Look at the way Nancy Pelosi, look at the way that members of Congress are treated. They get to have all manner of sort of insider trading, enriching themselves on the backs of secret committee hearings that they get to have. And Nancy Pelosi comes into office with $3 million net worth. And because of all of the different things that she's involved in, she's able to explode her wealth while she's a public servant. Like, she's in the United States Congress and now she's worth over $140 million. Of course it's privilege. Yeah. It's access. I think we'd be totally naive to sit here and say that these people aren't able to, they aren't able to take advantage of a system that provides incredible privilege to them.
The problem is that so many people online are, but her emails is a throwaway term, that was nothing. And it's uncomfortable to say that wasn't nothing. There was something there, and there was a standard that was set. And either we apply it to Donald Trump or we don't, right? We have to look at both of them fairly. And they both look like sort of neglectful collection of documents or willful. I'm not sure, right? But we can't judge this on whether or not we like these people or we wanted them elected or not, which I think was a mistake that I made at the time, thinking like, oh, the emails, that's just, whatever. It's not.
No, you go to lengths to set up a private server in your home, and come on, like it's premeditated. You have to meet with a team to go and do it, and then of course, we later learn Christopher Steele dossier. We learn about all of these other pieces that led to FISA warrants and all sorts of things being let out of a fake Christopher Steele dossier that was fabricated by the Hillary Clinton campaign.
Right.
So if premeditated to the point of setting up a private email server, setting up this so that it was outside of government oversight so that you could create this entire Russiagate narrative. The conspiracy theorist in me, but why else go to that length to set this stuff up if you're not going to use it for nefarious reasons or something else? But meanwhile, the Espionage Act, I want to come back to this because Rand Paul yesterday has taken a stance on this, saying the Espionage Act was abused from the beginning to jail dissenters of World War I. It is long past time to repeal this egregious affront to the First Amendment, repeal the Espionage Act, the Future of Freedom Foundation. And of course, look, that's a picture of Julian Assange, right? So the reason that Julian Assange is being extradited to the United States is because of the Espionage Act, right?
Yes.
So again, think how wide-reaching this is, right? If he is prosecuted in the United States, think about what that does to press freedoms, to be able to, think about Watergate, the Afghanistan papers, the Panama papers, all manner of like private classified information, documents that are handed over to the press and expose. Think about Edward Snowden, all of these things, right? That's how we learn about these governments taking advantage of people. And think about press freedoms, and people would be terrified. I think people would be absolutely terrified in the press to cover stories like this if they knew they could be held accountable as, up to the Espionage Act.
Yes. Yeah. So troubling questions to face as Americans, I feel like, and we'll see what comes of this. If this is the end of it and they just take the documents and then that's it, it will be interesting because if not, we would have a trial, right? A full trial. And it's a punch to the gut to ask yourself, would the nation survive that? As it is,
well, I think one of the. Oh, go sorry. Go ahead. Finish. I was going to say, I think one of the kind of, I don't know that we really covered on it, but I think part of what's behind like the urgency is that if there are nuclear secret documents, and then if you look at like the $2 billion that the Saudis just paid to Jared Kushner while visiting Mar-a-Lago recently, at like the
right.
LIV, whatever the new golf thing is, like I think that like if there is something there could very well be something in that, like an actual like, we want to say this is unprecedented in American history, but if a president or like the close people to a president actually deliberately transferred nuclear secrets to a foreign government, I mean that's unprecedented.
Yes.
So it's just interesting to me. That's something I'm keeping my eye on, is that part of the story.
Well, also, I'm keeping my eye on that. You mentioned the Jared Kushner piece of this. So people wondering whether or not that was the mole, like why $2 billion richer now? Like it was who stood to gain from this? Who stands to gain from this, right? That's where you look for this informant level, and people today pointing the finger at Jared Kushner. So I'm just saying that's what people are pointing at. And he suddenly is $2 billion richer. So interesting.